Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the session 3 of Optimistic Climate Change Talents in Action here in the Tunisia Pavilion. Today we gather to explore transformative corporate and policy initiatives driving climate action, sustainability, and financial resilience. We begin with Mr. Abdelbasit Mhenni from Schneider, who will outline key corporate strategies that are making a tangible impact on climate change and sustainability. Following this, Mrs. Houda Benjennet from the Organisation Méditerranéenne de l'Énergie et du Climat will guide us through essential pathways to achieving a net zero energy future for the Mediterranean region. Next, Mr. Ridha Bellemin, a strategic advisor, will present an innovative solution for leak detection and emission measurement, showcasing new ways to curb environmental impacts. Then, Ms. Zainab Ben Ahmed from the Climate Policy Initiative will then discuss managing currency risk to analyze climate finance in emerging markets and developing economies, a vital aspect of global climate funding. Finally, Mr. Monam Ben Lallahum from Sustainable Square Consultancy will wrap up our session with an insightful business case for ESG and sustainability, demonstrating how integrating environmental, social, and governance principles creates lasting value. Today's speakers are leaders and innovators whose insights will inspire us to advance sustainable practices across sectors. Let's engage deeply with their ideas and consider how we can contribute to a more climate resilient and prosperous future. Thank you, and let's begin. So, Mr. Abdelbasit Mhenni is an international expert in sustainable operations and technological innovation with extensive experience across North America, South America, Europe, and North Africa. He specializes in reducing environmental impact while enhancing profitability through technology-driven solutions. Abdelbasit holds master's degree in international business and data analytics with a sustainability professional certification from Harvard. He has presented at global events, including COP28, and is known for his resource optimization strategies. At COP29, he will share insights on global water management success stories applicable to Africa, actually. This session presents case studies of countries using technology-driven solutions to revolutionize water management. By adopting digitization, advanced monitoring, and data strategies, they have reduced water leakage, optimized resources, and boosted sustainability. Abdelbasit will explore best practices and insights applicable to African development nations, driving environmental and economic gains. Mr. Abdelbasit, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Simon. And hello everyone. My name is Abdelbasit Mhenni, and I will be talking a little bit about empowering African nation and the impact of technology behind all of this. We are going to deep dive into the consumption of water and how can we enhance this, okay? I would need the... Yeah, no worries. We can do it. Yeah, you can just like switch later on. So let's start with the question. I will test your knowledge on the crisis of water consumption and the shortage. Like, first question, what percentage of the world's population will face severe water shortages by 2040 if we don't act? Meaning, if we don't act now, what are the percentage of the world's population and the issues that we will be facing to serve water shortages? Next, 10% of the world, 25% of the world, or 50% of the world will face water shortages if we don't act now. Any guesses here? 10%. 10%, okay.
25.
25, okay. 50, okay. Let's go for the next one. Next, 50% of the population means like half of humanity will have shortage in water if we don't act now. And this is just not, it's not just a number. It's about people thriving, people don't have access to like water, families with, thank you. Families with limited access to water, hospitals that are not being able to act because these issues, and farmers who are losing their lands because of this like kind of issues, you know. Second question, now we are going, since we already talked about the crisis of water like issues, let's be, and since we are optimistic here, let's like see how much you are optimistic. How many additional people in Africa could have access to clean water by 2030 if we use smart water technology solution? Like 10 million people, 50 million people, or 200 million people?
200 million people.
200? Okay.
200.
All right. You have a chocolate box offer from me.
No.
Next. So imagine 200 million people will have clean water if we do smart watering, meaning that people will be having clean water in Africa, and it's a huge number. It's not that easy, you know. If we adapt this kind of solution, like leak detection, smart irrigation, and real-time water quality sensors, all of this one technology with the resources like that we have will be able to offer more clean water for people. And this is lives. We are really talking about humans. It's not just numbers. All right, so let's deep dive into this subject. I will be going through some use cases. I will be comparing Tunisia with some countries that succeeded to have a great, let's say, opportunities mixing technology and water resources. And I will be starting with Jordan. Jordan is like Tunisia. They have issues in urban water management, since there are many urban aging like infrastructure. There is many leaks of water. So what they did is that they worked hand in hand with Schneider Electric so that they can put an intelligent system that can monitor the water distribution and reduce leaks. Impact behind it, they did 35% reduction in water loss, which is really huge. Second, 25% improvement in water distribution efficiency. If we take these percentages and impact to give you some idea, what does it mean? 35% is water loss reduction, means like 10 million saved annually for this one country. And also it's like 200,000 of water saved for families for a year, like meaning families can be served with clean water for a year, and it's huge. It's just by putting in place a system, intelligent system, who can really calculate, understand, and monitor all the process end to end, and it will give them the real live monitoring to understand how can we act differently and in time. Okay. All right. I will give you a little bit of insight of how does the system works. Okay, because it's also important. We are talking about impact. You can say, okay, how it works. All right. So you see here, we have, this is the city, it's an example of the city. We have the connected products around the city, where we have the water like distribution and everything. And we have the edge control. When we talk about connected product, we are talking about any kind of product that can be linked in the distribution of the water, so that we can understand the consumption, the leaks, and everything is live. All of the data will be consolidated in the edge control, so that we have everything in one dashboard. Isn't it huge? Because we will be able to predict all the data, make sure that we are really doing data analytics and optimizing and like predicting how can we deal with it. And then we can automatically leak the detection, which is really important and for efficiency and cost saving. And all of this is remotely, all right? I hope that I gave you a little bit of insights about this. This is one of the examples of some materials that can be linked to the distribution of water. And it's the software part. So it's always hardware, software, where we can understand the real-time monitoring, and then we consolidate the data, and then doing artificial intelligence, data analytics, so that we can predict more, okay? All right, next please, yeah. Second use case, which I really love, we talk about urban water management, it's important, but in Africa, agriculture is our lifeline. We have many agricultures in like Africa, so this is really impactful for us. And we are talking about Tunisia and Morocco, okay? Two countries that are really, let's say, we can say that a brother from another mother, you know? It's like, okay, the challenges that we have in Tunisia and Morocco is that in Morocco, they face many waste in water when we are talking about agriculture, many wastage of water. How did they address this? They worked hand in hand with Schneider Electric, and they put smart irrigation system. We call it EcoStructure. So the impact behind this, they make it all intelligent, so that they can like understand all the usage. They put the sensors behind it, sensors in water, sensors in soil, and sensors also in the weather, so that we can understand the plant, we can understand the soil, and the weather behind. All of this data will be implemented also in one software, so that we can analyze it well. And then we can understand when we put the exact amount of water for the plant, so that we sustain and we make sure that it works well. All right? What is the impact behind it? No. Can you go back? Sorry, yeah. What is the impact behind it? 30% water loss reduction. It's 20 million cubic meter like per year. It's a huge. If we make an example of this amount of water can thrive 5 million people of drinking water per year. It's amazing. So this is another use case about Morocco and how they did well. And we can do the same in Tunisia, you know. Having an irrigating intelligence system, it's really a must. It's not an option, so that we can sustain and go further. Can you go to the slide later? Okay, so how does this system work? This is important also. So we're seeing a farm, okay? Here you can see the sensors. We have the soil sensor, the temperature sensor, the weather sensor. All of this will be collect data everywhere, and then we will be putting in place the intelligence behind, so that we can really mix it all and make sure that the farmer have the right insight in the right time, saying, okay, now we have an issue. Now we need to react fast, so that the farm can be sustained and can be really protected, and the plants can be really going normally. And all of this, the farmer can remote all of this online from his phone or from a PC. So we are gamifying the whole process and making it really easy for the farmer, so that we can make sure that the farm it's like sustainable, and the agriculture behind it's really safe. Right. Now I will be sharing with you one video, so that you can also see how does it work. Sorry, there is no sound in the room, but people live, they will be able to listen to it. I put some lines so that you can also understand. Same examples. All right, let's start with the video.
Farming has changed dramatically over the last 20, 30, 40 years.
SCADA Farm is a
So as you can see here is a farmer who is using the new technology. SCADA Farm is like one of the Schneider's famous products.
It allows us to adjust the amount of water we apply to the land, and it can integrate with the weather forecasts that are
Really
coming.
put the right amount of water, and he's using this by his phone. So this is the weather sensors. We are consolidating the data, and the farmer has everything in one
Built on
place.
Azure IoT, Schneider Electric allows us to collect and analyze the data needed to deliver the insights our customers require to stay competitive. To transform the way we farm, we need a trusted cloud platform that is as global and local as our own industry. And that's why we work with Schneider Electric and Microsoft.
All right. So I'll finish by this slide to make sure that you really understand the processes and how does it work. All right. So how does it work? We said that we start always by intelligent sensors, weather, soil, plant, everything goes to automated data collection. So these sensors gather data on soil, the temperature and everything, and we consolidate all the data. Then we move to analytics and to the production. We have big data. We are trying to analyze it, and we go further so that we can make sure that this data is used on the right time, and we can really have some insights useful for the farmer behind it. And we start always by the impact. Data, okay, but what is the impact behind doing all of this? Then we move to automated adjustment, meaning that if we understand the plant, the system adjusts irregularly, automatically to ensure crops receive the exact same amount of water to sustain it. And then we end up with the remote monitoring, which is what you already saw, the dashboard of the farmer, you know. All right, my presentation is finished here, but I want to say I'm seeing a lot of talented people everywhere, and the message is how can we really work together to make an impact? Let's be impact makers who act for sustainability, efficiency, and resiliency to create an energy future that works for everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abdullah.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have just a little question.
Thank you very much. It's really very interesting. All the subjects related to sensors, to monitoring, and to helping the agriculture. My question is quite simple, is that let's assume we have such a system. Who will be the direct user? Is it also applicable to small farmers, or you need to be a big corporation farming to be sure that you can afford this system?
Awesome, yeah, awesome question. This is the start of everything. How can we gamify this and make it easier also for the small farmers so that they can use it, you know? So it's not just for the big farmers, it's also for the small ones. We have many kinds of product that can really adapt to every kind of farmers. And the system is really easy, and you have just one application on your phone so that you can monitor everything. Yeah. Right?
My question, when it comes to the smaller land, agricultural land, how do you overcome, for example, the barrier where the farmer does not necessarily have access to internet or not particularly tech savvy? How do you think about, adopting this type of technology?
Awesome question. I think infrastructure is always important when we are talking about a transformation. We have farmers, let's take, for example, Tunisia. If I am doing a business in Tunisia, I would need to inform and to do trainings for the farmers, make sure that the infrastructure is okay. It's a challenge, but when you are the early one in business and doing this, you need to do all of the work behind. Training, infrastructure, to make sure that you sustain the business. It's not easy, but this is the vision behind.
Hello. I would like to know, did you know what is the average of the water consumption by a habitant in Tunisia?
I don't have this data, but I can do my research, and if I find it, I can share it
I
with you.
can give you
Okay.
this average. It's about 30 150 cube meter by habitant by years.
Okay.
And no, it's okay. It's just good. And now it's average above the international average.
Okay.
It's about, I think, 500.
Okay.
Yes, it's
Awesome.
and which this rate lead Tunisia to be classified as a country which suffering about shortage.
Okay. I would love to have this analysis if you have it. If you
Yes.
can share it with us, I would love to have it. Yeah. Thank you.
I'd like to just to answer what you were just saying. Excuse me. Just to answer what you were just saying. Yesterday we had a very nice presentation. One of our startups that we showcased, WaterSec. It's called WaterSec. He was pitching about his idea where we're monitoring the amount of water that's consumed in for public or private sector, and that is a solution to what you're saying. So when you monitor, you're gonna use less water, and hopefully we're praying that we're gonna use less water.
Okay. Just in French, I have one comment. Je vais ajouter par rapport à cette valorisation de comment lutter contre cette pénurie d'eau. Peut-être je me présente, je suis Mousbah Abbas, directeur général de développement durable au sein du ministère de l'Environnement. Le commentaire, c'est que nous sommes en train de travailler sur la valorisation des eaux usées traitées, traitement tertiaire,
Okay.
et on a travaillé beaucoup pour communiquer cette alternative. Et j'ai une vidéo de 2 minutes, si vous permettez, je peux le transmettre, et qui illustre vraiment une bonne pratique d'utilisation des eaux usées et traitées pour produire, surtout dans l'activité de l'agriculture.
Avec plaisir,
Voyez.
merci.
Oui, merci.
I would propose for you the book of Atlas de l'eau en Tunisie. It's a book, a publication of the University of Tunis,
Okay.
FSST, Faculté des Sciences Humaines et Sociales de Tunis, where you can find all things about water in Tunisia.
Awesome.
Okay. And as said, Afif, it's the world quota is 1,000 meter cube per habitant,
Okay.
and we are less than 500. That means we are in stress hydric, and
Yeah.
so yes, and now in maybe around 2030 will be under poverty, poor country water.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you so much for sharing this.
Just,
Yeah.
Now we talk about shortage, stress hydrique. In French, crash hydrique. In English, I didn't know exactly the term. Crash
Thank you.
hydrique.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, we had the opportunity to have a webinar with Dr. Gafraj from the University of Tunis. So that's also a great expertise about water in Tunisia and around the world. Okay, thank you very much, Abdul Basit. That was great. Please give it to Huda. So next is Mrs. Huda bin Jannat. Dr. Huda bin Jannat has been Director General of the Organisation Méditerranéenne de l'énergie et du climat since 2013 and leads the UFM Working Group on Gas Emissions Abatement and Hydrogen. Joining OME in '92, she has focused on renewable energy, demand management, and sustainability. She holds a PhD from École des Mines in Paris and degrees from Institut Français du Pétrole and University of Paris 2. Dr. Benjenet has also lectured at prestigious institutions, including École des Mines de Paris and École Normale Supérieure. The Mediterranean region faces overlapping crises, with energy security concerns conflicting with climate action needs. As one of the most climate vulnerable areas, it must balance urgent energy demands with sustainable development goals amid political tensions. Achieving this requires innovative solutions and cooperation, focusing on renewable energy, green hydrogen, and cross-border trade to decarbonize the region and beyond. Dr. Benjenet, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I will check the time. Good morning, and thank you very much for inviting me once again. This is the second time I'm with you at COP. I'm very pleased to be part of this fantastic group. And so today I'm very pleased to share really hot results of the update of the scenarios I presented yesterday. So this is the first time we present this Mediterranean energy perspective update, and the book will be released in March 2025. But I have received the final result yesterday, so I have few figures because it's very hot. So we go to the presentation. So I'm Huda Benjenet, as he said, Director General of the Mediterranean Organization for Energy and Climate. This is an association of Mediterranean energy companies, and from Tunisia we have STEG, ETAP, and we have ANMO as well. But so we are covering the whole Mediterranean region with the objectives to promote cooperation and dialogue, and to progress and achieve in the best way the sustainable development in the Mediterranean region and the energy transition. And so in the last couple of years, in 2021, there was a UFM energy ministerial meeting. And we, as OMEC, we are at the secretariat of what was used to be known as UFM Gas Platform. And there are 3 energy platforms. And we have been tasked by the Europe Mediterranean energy ministers to look at how to decarbonize. So we, as OMEC, one of our flagship publications is to look at what's going on in the Mediterranean region, what would be the future. But since a couple of years, we've been looking at how we could also decarbonize the Mediterranean region. But at the same time, we are very, for us, it's very important to have look at what is realistic and what is going on. So it is good to look at how we go the path to decarbonize the Mediterranean region, but it is very important also to look at what policies and measures are taken now, and so where the future could be. And you will see that it is very, very important for the South Mediterranean region, because this is 2 contrasting future that we may lead to. And so this is just to remind, this is the same thing than last year. It is based on our own model, and in which we consider only 3 exogenous variables, which is population, prices, and GDP. So we rely on IMF, on IEA for the energy prices, and so World Bank for the GDP. So we have also a supply module. So we look at what would be the prospects for energy demand, but at the same time, which resources the region has, fossil fuel resources, to then be able to assess the security issue, energy security issue, which is one of the most important and still the number 1. And I think that for Europe also, we became coming back to the roots, because the crisis in Ukraine led them also to see energy security as a first priority. But it has always been the first priority for the South Mediterranean countries, even though they are embarked in the energy transition, even though they are willing to contribute to the Paris Agreement and to reach the decarbonization, but energy security first. So we have our what we call the reference scenario, still the same thing. We are looking at what would be the energy mix, what would be the future for energy in case the countries reach only the unconditional NDCs, because this is really a commitment. So this is the realistic future. So for Europe, we consider that they will reach their targets, but they won't be reaching their net zero carbon scenario for the reference scenario. Then we looked at what we were been asking for. So how could we go to decarbonizing the Mediterranean region, and considering, well, the specificity of the Mediterranean and the resources available. Of course, we have we've pushed for renewable energy increase in order to tap the full potential of the renewable energy increase. We know that the easiest to decarbonize is the electricity sector. Then we looked at the major shift towards electric vehicle, sizable increase in energy efficiency in buildings. So we looked at the energy potential, which we can energy efficiency, but especially for buildings, because they are the ones that have the biggest energy efficiency potential, but not only. And we looked also at increased CCS and CCUS. As you will see, our conclusion is whatever the future is, we will still need hydrocarbons in the Mediterranean region. And if we decarbonize, we will need natural gas. So natural gas will still have a future in the Mediterranean region, even though we tap the energy efficiency potential, the renewable energy potential, the new gases, new hydrogen, but still you will have to look at CCS and CCUS. And when we accept that, and I think this is, we've heard already, so there is no decarbonization without methane emission if we don't tackle this issue. So there is also a consensus that we accept that it could not be without natural gas for a while. So the horizon for us, as I said, is to decarbonize the Mediterranean region. So where do we start from? We are 7% of the total global population in the world. We consume 7% of the total energy demand, and we contribute with 10% of GDP, and we only contribute with 5% of CO2 emission. By the end of the day, we're not so bad, because we produce 10% of GDP with 7% of consumption and population, and we only contribute with 5% of the CO2. So no shame. We are not bad we are at the point of start. Then what the international organizations are telling us is that the population in the North Mediterranean countries will reduce by 13 million. So they are decarbonizing with less people, I would say, and in more mature economies. And we, in the South Mediterranean countries, we need to decarbonize while we are going to have more than 110 million people to come. So we will increase by 110 million. GDP will be double, so the growth of GDP, the growth will be much more driven by the South Mediterranean countries. However, when you look at the GDP per capita, disparities will remain. I mean, even though the growth is driven by the South, still in GDP per capita, there is big disparities that will be pursued. So when we put all this together, and so of course, this is done for us country by country, sector by sector. So what we see is that if we only achieve the unconditional NDCs, energy demand for the whole region will have to increase by 30% of increase. But if we need to decarbonize, then we have to reduce by 18% the present demand, or to avoid 36% between the NDCs scenario and in terms of energy mix, whether if we go NDCs, so today our energy mix is based for the region 77% fossil fuel, oil number one, and then you have gas. If we go with NDCs, the story will be still the same. The share with fossil fuels will decrease, but 60%, but still 60% of the fossil fuels will be in the energy mix. Renewables will increase, nuclear will increase as well, but we will still be fossil fuel economy based. However, if we go to decarbonize, then you will have renewables energy that will represent 62% of the energy mix in the region. So completely different studies. What is more striking is when we look at by region. For the Mediterranean region, so if we look at the north, you have graphs that are coherent. We are decreasing. In any case, we are decreasing. It is only the path, the speed. We will decrease by too much or a little bit, but we are decreasing. In any case, first thing. Second, you have a lot of green. So we are decreasing, we are greening, whatever the scenario is. Nevertheless, and this is where it is very important, the policies and measures that we are taking today will have a tremendous impact of our energy demand, because in the south, that means that it will double. So energy demand will double between today and 2030, and we will still keep a fossil fuel-based economies, even though renewables, as you can see, integrate. If we decarbonize, then it is completely a different story. So we have a renewable energy that will be major in the region, but still 21%, in the region 33%, but still fossil fuel, as I said, in that case, natural gas will keep an important role in the Mediterranean region. But you see that it is completely too different. I mean, from hydrocarbons based still to renewable energy and energy efficiency and green economy. Renewables demand. So when here we see where we are. So today renewables represent only 13% of the energy mix. And if we go to the decarbonization of the region, so it will be whether 28% or 64%. In the region will be much more wind and solar because of the resources which are available, and in the south even much solar than wind. Nuclear is coming back, as you all know. I'm sure you've heard about that. So we expect nuclear to and even Europe. So in 2050 they consider that they will have their energy mix, and we've heard about that here in COP as well. 90% renewables, 10% nuclear. So this is the target for Europe. And actually, there are South countries that are active also in nuclear and progressing, in particular Turkey and Egypt. But Morocco is also, and Jordan are also envisaging, looking for developing nuclear. But Turkey and Egypt are Turkey now are really in the step of putting this in operation. In the north, Spain and Slovenia are thinking about the phasing out of nuclear. But so nuclear here is considered as, because of it is low carbon, as a flexibility as well with the introduction, the new huge introduction of renewables energy for the electricity system. So this is a kind of backup that could be help renewables to develop. I didn't mention also one important issue is that if we increase tremendously renewables, we will need also storage. And we consider that storage might be 10 to 15% of the electricity mix if we wish also to push forward to the renewables. Electricity and uses here again, you see, we will have two different stories. Today, electricity represents 23% of the end uses. However, if we continue only with NDCs, we will have more or less the same story. So with fossil fuel, we share, lose a little bit of share, but still we will be fossil fuel based. But if we look at the decarbonization and you add so electricity plus renewables, so 80% of the end users will be decarbonized or low carbon energies. So this is a shift towards electricity with electrification of end usages in all sectors. And we will have, in that case, also more reliance on biofuels. Energy efficiency. So renewables, we have a huge potential in the regions that can be tapped, but also we need to tap, if we wish to decarbonize, the huge potential for energy efficiency. And again, these are decisions to be taken now, because the building you construct today will last for 30, 40 years. So if it is non-efficient, so it will be a mess. And we know that tapping the energy efficiency potential in existing is much more costly than doing it in new. So it is we have several reasons, and for economy and efficiency to already invest in energy efficiency, because again it will be costly. So if we wish to decarbonize, we need to avoid 34%. So the demand should, as I showed in the beginning, so we should reduce by 34% the energy demand, and for the overall region we need to reduce by 8% the energy demand between today and 2050. So just imagine, we will have 110 million people, but we would need to consume less by 2050. And energy efficiency in all this is, as you see, in all the sectors, but especially in the transport sector. Power generation, as I said, this is where renewable energy can play a big role, because this is the easiest to decarbonize. And when we look at the situation between North and South, this is also amazing to see that despite the huge resources that we have in the South, we are only 22% of our energy mix based, electricity mix based on renewables, whether it is already 64% in Europe. So Europe will go to 86 or 97, so they are really decarbonizing the energy sector, in electricity sector in any case, and in our case as well, we can say, because you see that we expect already in the unconditional NDC 61% of the electricity mix based on renewable energy. So this is not bad at all, and we have plenty of even here we've heard in COP Egypt that is increasing its renewable energy target by more than 65%. By 2040, so there is Morocco 51%, Tunisia as well. So there is a big push for renewable energy, because also it is cost effective now for electricity. The costs have fallen so much that it is even more cost effective than hydrocarbons. So, what's the story with regards to the increasing capacities? So you see here a phase out of fossil fuel for the electricity sector is happening, whatever the scenario is, except for gas, if we go only for NDCs. So this is the only, we will have net increase of electricity capacity by gas in the unconditional NDCs. Otherwise, we will be developing renewable energy capacity, again, wind and solar in particular, and both in the North and in the South Mediterranean countries. Battery storage, as I said, they have to represent 10 to 15% of the electricity capacity, and this is very important for renewables. Green hydrogen. So we've been also this year very much working on how could the South Mediterranean countries supply its own needs and export renewables and renewable hydrogen to Europe. So it is for renewables, we have the potential to, but what we need is to integrate the region, to accelerate, of course, because we have plenty of needs in our homes, but we also need to integrate the Mediterranean region, because if we don't integrate, so how can you export? And so considering the situation today, one can say it's a little bit a dream, wishful thinking, but we need to work for that. For green hydrogen, so we consider that green hydrogen won't really start before mid-2035 and even beyond, and it is quite complex issue, complex. Here again, there is we have seen that the countries have established announced strategies. So all of the countries, almost all the countries from the south, have announced their strategies for renewable hydrogen. And amazing to see that they consider within their strategies big part of export. So they have their own need, but the strategy is very much relies on exporting renewables to Europe. And this is why, because Europe has said in its strategy that it will need to import 10 million tons of renewable hydrogen by 2030. Unfortunately, this won't be possible, but interesting to see that the South Mediterranean countries have replied positively with the sense that saying, okay, so we are willing to contribute, we are willing to produce renewable energy, hydrogen in our countries, but also with a big share of exporting. And so we consider that it is much more rapid, much more easily to decarbonize the Mediterranean sector, to tap the renewable energy. But for renewable hydrogen, yes, there is a big potential, but it may take more time. Still, so green hydrogen can reach 6% of total energy demand by 2050. As I told you, energy security. So why we need and we must, even though it looks very challenging, how can we just increase 8% energy demand and feed all the Mediterranean countries, whether we know that 110 million people, so it looks like really crazy. But we need to work on that for the South Mediterranean countries as well, because here you see the energy dependence. Today, the Mediterranean, if we were all together, we have a dependency by 39%. Europe is the most dependent, South Mediterranean only 8% energy dependency. But when we look at the future, so Europe by 2050, in any case, will reduce its volumes of needs of energy imports and its dependency. When we look in the South, this is really not good news and even very bad news, because not only we will explode the energy security dependency, energy dependency, but you see the volumes that we will need to import. And so this is absolutely, we know, unfortunately, for the many, many reasons, not need to explain, that this cannot happen. We cannot leave this to happen. And otherwise, in contrary, when we promote and develop renewable energies and energy efficiency, we will be able to be net exporter. So if there is no demand, okay, but in any case, we will be net exporter and we will avoid this burden of energy dependency. So for this reason, even though COP, we have problems and we don't know, and uncertainties, and maybe it will collapse, and we hope not. Even though it is not for climate, we need to accelerate the Mediterranean energy transition for its own security, and also because we are a hotspot. I mean, we are really feeling in our daily life in the different parts of the region the impact of climate change. No one can say it is historic, because it is becoming really more often. And it is obvious that we do have to do something about that. Here, CO2 emissions. So if we continue, so you see the level in 2029. So the South Mediterranean countries, a very small player in terms of contribution in the energy CO2 emission for the region, and we are taking the bigger share. Now in 2022, you see it is 50% almost between North and South Mediterranean countries, and it is going to be the reverse. So South will contribute much more, and if we do not decarbonize, we will increase in the South by 50% the CO2 emissions, and you see that Europe, the North Mediterranean countries, will decrease by 50%. And so our message here is to say that it is very important that the region thinks the energy transition in global, and to promote the regional cooperation, because if the Europe only achieves its targets, where we are continuing that, so the South will kill the efforts of the North, because by the end of the day, we will still contribute to the same level. So that is why it is very important that we work on that together. And so the impressive target to decarbonize the region would require that we do not pollute anyway, CO2 emission, so decrease by 20 to 88%. And as explained, this is the contribution can come first from renewables, so 45% of the CO2 emissions can be avoided by tapping the full potential of renewable energy in the region. Second, 44% in energy efficiency. So renewables and energy efficiency alone, they are 89%, yeah. But you cannot do only this. Again, we have to consider that the energy mix is an energy mix. You still need some carbonized energy. You have to work on that. So we need to look at CCUS, and we need also to look at the future, new careers, new technologies, and green gases. So these are just first conclusion, but really my conclusion is that this is a global issue. The region has to work on that together. We need to integrate the region, and I hope that one day and soon we will reach. So it is really very difficult today in the conditions that we are living in the South, in Europe, but we really need to integrate the system. We need to promote cooperation. We need to look at the future, be ambitious, but be realistic as well. And hopefully we will reach a better future. I hope to be, I'm available for a question, and I hope that we will come back. We will gather next year with more better and more Better news. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Huda. For sure, there are some questions. And my first question would be about, hydrogen. Actually, at COP28, we were very optimistic that the hydrogen would be a great opportunity for Tunisia, both to produce renewable energy for Tunisia, but also to be exported. And obviously, a year after, we understand that the production of hydrogen requires a lot of water. And in the case of Tunisia, we have an issue with water. So how can we expect that we export the same issue is for all the south of Mediterranean. So how realistic is that assumption that we would be exporting hydrogen to the north?
Well, we can, we could, we can, we would, we will, but this depends on many factors. First of all, it will take more time. As I said, the European Union in its strategy put a target to 10 million tons to be imported from elsewhere, and the region is one of them. And as you said, Tunisia and several countries have set targets. But it is not happening, and we have seen plenty of memorandum of understanding signed. It started in Sharm el-Sheikh, in COP Sharm el-Sheikh. So we have plenty. We assessed more than 90 projects, but MOUs. We've been, as I said, doing this work to see how we could be potential exporters of Tunisia and other countries. It is moving. It is it is relatively new in the sense that we might see also some technology progress, even to address, because some work is performed in order to address this issue of water. So we might have good news on that. But in any case, the problem is that we don't have demand today. So this is the issue. It is much costly. We have many barriers, I would say, to the implementation of renewable hydrogen today. And don't forget about also the huge needs for renewable energy for the electricity first. We need to deploy renewable energy electricity to decarbonize the South Mediterranean countries, and then to have access to potentially export electrons or molecules. But it is easier for electrons, but we are missing the interconnection, and it is more difficult for molecules because, again, for the time being, there is no demand. Where are the off-takers? A lot of MOUs have been signed, but the demand is not clear. So that was, again, one of the messages here by the European Investment Bank, by EBRD, and many players to say, you need to secure demand because security of supply versus security of demand. But yes, it is also still costly. There are still a lot of barriers. It is not easy to invest in our region because there are a lot of risks. The issue of water, political risks, technical risks. So it is, we are in the starting. We expect, that is why when I made the presentation, we said, we do not expect this to happen really before 2035. In our assessment, if we achieve what is on the plans, the region can maybe reach 1.3 million tons. But we have identified Tunisia, Egypt, Morocco. So there is potential, but it will take time.
Thank you. Any question? Okay, we'll come to you.
Thank you so much for this very, very informative presentation. My question is really about if you can tell us like the link between the introduction of this energy mix and the impact it could have on the GDP growth. Because at the beginning of the presentation, you showcases that the GDP is actually doubling, but I was wondering really to what extent this scenario realistic, given exactly what you're saying about how costly, this introduction of energy is going to take, and maybe the country will be more debt because we have limited finance, and the fact that we don't actually have, the technology needed. So yeah, I would love to learn a bit more about, this balance between economic development, which should be also you know, our goals specifically for developing economy and the introduction of this renewable energy mix?
Thank you very much for the question. So this is a future exercise that we are going to undertake. I explained very briefly. In the beginning, I said GDP is exogenous. So we are taking population growth, GDP from IMF, so what they foresee for our region, and international energy prices. And it is, so our model bases on this growth, basis on the population growth, gives energy demand for each country by sector, starting from the mix. And so this is an outcome given this growth. So we are not looking at what would be the impact of energy transition on the growth, but considering this and the population and this growth, what would be the energy demand, and then we go by country, by sector. But it's true that we are discussing now the same for energy supply. So we have our experts that are looking at what is available in the region, and when we will pick, and this is where you get this figure of energy dependency. So how much each country can produce, and we make the difference, and we say. But again, here, this is again another story, because if we are to accelerate, might be that we are not anymore going to use these hydrocarbons, and then the supply will change as well. So these are elements on which we will be working in the future. So to look at different ways. So what would be the impact of the energy transition on GDP, and also what would be the impact of the policy and the measures that are taken, and also the fact that there is no financing, it is difficult to find financing for hydrocarbons, things like this, on the energy supply in the Mediterranean region as well. So I don't have an answer, but I hope next time I will give you an answer.
Thank you.
But very important indeed.
Hello, thank you for this very insightful presentation. Actually, I have many questions, but I try to summarize 2 or 3 questions. So the first one is like considering the South as a bloc, while we know that Algeria has a lot of gas, Tunisia has its own specification, Egypt. So how common traits do we have as a region to do an analysis regarding the South? And when I see the different graphs, I see like we will have a lot of problems like regarding producing renewable energy. And in parallel, I see like we are exporting like to Europe, the hydrogen. So does it make sense that we produce, we transport the energy while we are having our own challenges? I think it makes more sense to go into South-South approach more than South-North Mediterranean approach. And the last question, to follow up with Mr. Munir's question, is like regarding the water issue while producing the hydrogen. So why we don't see debates, why we don't see more transparency regarding what's being signed between like Tunisia and this region with the Europe region regarding all these aspects? And thank you.
So I'll start with, so first of all, what I have presented here does not include any export. So here we consider that there is no integration. And so what I need each single country in order to address its own needs. And so small changes, of course, it changes, but and no export. So doesn't include what we will be exporting or to Europe or whatever. So this is first. In this, we don't. And second, as I said, this is something we are working on, and we see that we can really by 2030 export a little, because we are in the beginning of the story, and again we have plenty of barriers, plenty of opportunities, and because the potential is there, could be feasible, but we have plenty of barriers. Now, as I said, yes, regional integration. If we would like to be efficient, we need to integrate the region as a whole, not only South-South, but South-North. Because if we deploy renewables, you have complementarities, you know, when it is sunny here, wind is there. And so it will really reduce the needs in terms of capacity installed if we are in an integrated energy system as a whole. South-South cooperation is very important because North-North cooperation is working, and the regional cooperation has some issues. Unfortunately, there are some issues that are behind what we are speaking about. And this is what we are trying to do within the Union for the Mediterranean. So we have three platforms, one on renewable energy and energy efficiency, one on renewable electricity market integration, and one on now used to be gas. What we are heading used to be gas, and now it is gas, emission abatement, plus hydrogen. So there is a debate, there is a dialogue, but it is not progressing fast because we have also other barriers, political barriers in the region that we cannot solve. Now there is nothing, everything is transparent, because don't think that there is anything hidden. There is nothing hidden. Tunisia have signed the memorandum of understanding with the European Union. Egypt did as well. So the aim is to see how to help also the country accelerating its energy transition, and to see how we can have win-win cooperation between both. The South Mediterranean region used to be and still be the exporting for Europe for hydrogen, for gas. So we are already playing together. So why don't we consider that could be also decarbonization could be a target where we can envisage South could export, could be vice versa, by the way, because if we interconnect, we could be able to export renewable electricity and then to import as well. So this is a process, and again, there is nothing non-transparent. The water scarcity and the water issue is discussed as well, and there is a lot of technology work as well. So it is not mature yet, but it is something which is considered, and for which we are trying to find a solution. But from what I see, because it is my full-time job, and our full-time job is to work on this issue, I really don't see any devil, frankly.
Thank you, Dr. Houda.
Just before we forget the question of Mr. Monid, I would like to bring some short response related to, in order to produce hydrogen, we just need water came from the sea. This we don't use drink water, but the big issue related to the hydrogen is the storage is the big issue.
Thank you very much. Our next intervention is from Mr. Rida Bellamin, who holds a PhD in applied mathematics from the University of Rennes and an MBA from Sciences Po Paris, with over 36 years of global leadership experience across industries. He has worked in R&D, business development, sales and operations. He has held executive roles at Nokia, Siemens, Thales, and Industrial Scientific 40 Group. Based in the UAE, he has lived and worked in multiple countries, including Tunisia, France, and South Africa. Emission detection and monitoring technologies are crucial for aligning industrial activities with environmental responsibility and decarbonization goals. These technologies aid in regulatory compliance and empower industries to enhance operational efficiency while minimizing environmental impact. Precise modeling helps identify emission hotspots and develop targeted reduction strategies, supporting global efforts to reduce carbon footprints. So, Silida, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, first, our host, the Tunisian delegation. Thank you for TTU representatives. Thank you for the contribution of the Tunisian talents and for your participation. The first thing I want to say is that Madame Houda could not make better introduction than what I'm doing, is that we have a problem. We have many problems in reality, and we need to stop and think a little bit. What have we been doing so far? What have been doing, what we have been doing good, and we have to continue doing? What we have been doing bad, and we have to stop doing? What we have been doing average, and we can improve. I think that this is the first thing we have all of us think about it and address it. It's not about philosophy, it's about very, very pragmatic. This is the first thing. The second aspect I would like to address with you is that we have a very, very interesting numbers, but what does it mean, the numbers? I did a lot of, I hate numbers. I tell you why I hate numbers. Because when you take an average, I give you an average. I give you an average based on temperature. I have 1 foot minus 50 degrees, freezing. I have 1 foot, 100 degree, boiling. The average is 25, it's perfect. So these are the numbers. If we don't understand the meaning of the numbers, we are not doing the right thing. Sometimes it's good to have a top-down approach. It's not criticism, it's good, top-down. And sometimes it's a bottom-up approach as well. We need to get from the field the data and process it. And at the end, what matters is that what is our vision? I think Mr. Fadel yesterday made a very good statement. I hope I'm not going to change the statement. I will repeat many things, by the way, colleagues and friends, you have said. It's not from me, I'm just summarizing. He said that if you don't have a vision, you are part of the vision of someone else. And I would just change the second statement and saying that if you don't have a vision, you are blind. And if you are blind, you are going nowhere. You need someone to help you to go to the right direction. So I think that this is just for us the right time to sit together and think what we are doing and how we are doing it, and together think how we can improve it. So another aspect Madame Huda mentioned is about energy efficiency. And this is the question, what have we been doing? Good, bad, etc. So I'm not going to address at all the renewable energy, because there are many of them, and again, many of them based on 2 kinds of numbers. Again, numbers. Why I had again the numbers? Because we have the lagging information and the leading information. The lagging information, which are historical, we can process them, we can use them to define maybe some leading. Now, with the help of artificial intelligence, we can do something much maybe faster and more efficient. So in terms of energy efficiency, I want just to tell you something which is a kind of summary of what we were doing, because 30 years ago, we used to have separate technologies or maybe industries. I remember I used to work for Alcatel Alstom. It was we're doing energy in Alstom, we're doing telecommunication in Alcatel, and then we have transport in Alstom as well. And then the world was having 3 legs, which are energy and resources, transport, and communication. And the reality today, and you see it in all this presentation, and you mentioned it several times, behind each electricity network, there is a telecom network. Behind each telecom network, there is an electricity network. Behind each, you mentioned the SCADA and the water network, you have a telecom network. And to have a telecom network, you need an electricity network. So everything is mixed together, and you need really to have a clear understanding. All of this is in our hand. So to come back to the emission monitoring, I want to say that it's more or less the same as water monitoring and other energy monitoring, etc. So what I'm saying now on maybe on the gas to focus on is applicable on other resources and other industries, and all of them, they are having the same scheme. You have in oil and gas, it's easy. They are using upstream, downstream, and midstream, but in electricity, it's the same. You have the power, the generation of energy, transport of energy, and then distribution of energy. And there are different markets, even different industries sometimes, the last month. So what is happening is that the energy efficiency, for example, could be not optimum at different levels, at the production, at the transport, at the processing and the access. I have some numbers just in mind. I mean, I'm talking under the control of people who have more expertise than myself. To produce 1 barrel of petrol, 2 barrels, sometimes you need to spend 1 barrel. And then to transport it, you need to spend also almost a certain level. So if to produce a barrel, you are spending almost big quantity of this barrel before you get it. I'm not talking about the refinery, about the petrochemical, etc., etc. So I think that if we have a value stream mapping, and then you think on different steps, what we can save, I think this is something which is really doable, and doable now, not in 20 years or 30 years. So we need to look at it. So thank you very much, Abbas, for your help, because my slides, they were very ugly now. It makes much more sense. So what I want just to tell you is that in gas detection in particular, we have different ways of working on the gas detection because they are very, very helpful. Sometimes for protecting people, because certain areas, you need to have devices to make sure that what you access as sites are safe. For example, you go to confined space, you may not have enough oxygen. You go to a field, you may have leaks of H2S, which is a toxic gas. You may be in an area where you have gases like methane, which is explosive. So it's very important to protect people having gas detection tools. But this is protecting people. But you have also fixed devices. I don't see some of them here, but sometimes are for protection of assets. You need to protect your building, so you need to have gas detection in the building itself. So there are several technologies which helps detecting the gases, either fixed or mobile. And this is very, very important source of information because it gives you the quality of the air. This is what matters most. We are thinking about 20 years ahead, but think about 1 minute ahead. Do we have enough air to breathe first? And what is this air? Can I survive now? And in this air, some of the gases, they may be toxic right now, but they may be having an impact on mid and long term, getting a cancer or getting something else. So it is very important to know what we are breathing today and how we pollute the air. So it's really very important. But this is, again, it's at people level, at asset level. You have also air analysis and weather station, etc., which are helping at the macro level to know what is the quality of the air. And I will show you later kind of we call plume modeling. Plume modeling is you just study the gas. Okay, good. You study the cloud of gases, where they are going, etc. So, and then you understand where it's coming from, where it's going to, and you may take a decision, for example, from an industrial area to an urban area, what to do, maybe to evacuate or maybe to do something else. So then, of course, I think last COP28, we have a very interesting startup from Tunisia doing satellite image analysis based on what we have today, not on what is going in the next launch of satellite, which is very important. There are many other technologies for corrosion monitoring. It's very interesting. This is a preventive one. You have measurement, of course, on emission directly, bolting solution to make sure that the pipes of gases and water, etc., are not leaking, etc., etc. So I will just give you a couple of them. So this is the plume modeling based on the data we get from the gas detector, we get from the weather, on the kind of gas. We may define in 3D a kind of plume with a different density of gas, direction, and take decision on this cloud or on this emission. It's more or less the same. These are available products in the market. I'm not doing promotion, but there are many commercial solutions, and they are very, very helpful for not only for companies, for industries, but also for the urban areas. It helps sometimes for the arbitration between the different areas. I'm interested as well in this leak detection, just to give you in 1 minute what is it. In general, to check a leak, old way of doing it is a chemical way, just to see that there is a leak. But when I say leak, you have fugitive leaks in general. The rest, it's a big leak, so we know about it. But when it's a fugitive leak, it's not really easy to find. The new technologies are using some ultrasonic idea, which are really working, not very accurate, but sometimes they are combined with image analysis, and it's really very, very accurate. And this is very helpful to go, for example, into a plant and then make the, you see, for example, here you may get up to 120 micro together with the camera, and then you get the leak detected and positioned at the right place. You see here, you can see it, for example. And the good thing in this approach is that it gives you the rate of the leak. For example, you have 48 liter per hour. Sometimes it's not about the quantity, it's also about the cost. If you have certain gases are very, very expensive, so it has sometimes very, very high cost to get. Yeah, so this is it. Is just to, again, to summarize, is that before going to renewable technology, let's have a look on what we have, what we invested for the last decades, make sure that we are operating them properly, it's optimized, and I think this is really about operational excellence and about our lives. It's not for the 50 years coming, but for the next hours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zilida. Any question? Very good. So our next intervention is about finance. And Ms. Zainab bin Ahmed is a climate finance specialist at the Climate Policy Initiative in Washington, D.C., supporting reforms in international financial architecture to boost climate finance in emerging markets. She works on financial mechanisms like currency risk and guarantees through the FISC Lab. Previously, she was a human capital fellow at the World Bank and a research analyst at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Zainab holds a Master of Public Policy from Harvard Kennedy School and a Master from LSE. Emerging markets and developing economies face challenges in securing climate finance to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees due to shallow local capital markets. International climate finance, estimated at $1 to 2 trillion annually by $2 trillion annually by 2030, is crucial but hindered by currency risk. This presentation examines the mismatch between debt in hard currencies and revenue in local currencies, which complicates climate project financing in the region. Zainab, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Can I have the remote? Okay. Amazing. Okay. Okay. This does not really look the color of my slides, but it's not my slide. Yeah,
No,
there's some issue. Okay,
it's coming.
No worries at all. It's coming?
It's coming.
So after this one?
No. You are monitoring a presentation that is not yours. Wait a minute.
No problem.
Now you have it.
Amazing. Okay, cool. First of all, thank you so much for this opportunity to present today about climate finance. Specifically, it's also like the topic of COP29. Today, I'm going to delve about one of the key structural barriers that can explain why we don't have enough international investments in emerging market and developing economies, in which, of course, Tunisia is part of. So first, this presentation is going to be around three main aspects. One, I'm going to give background information about currency risk. Two, I'm going to actually explain why is it actually a challenge when it comes to climate investments. And three, maybe the most exciting part, what are like the key solutions to address them. So a little bit of background information. So when you talk about currency risks, there are multiple of them. So for example, there is the fluctuation or market risk, which basically is the idea where you have local currency that depreciate against a hard currency. So for example, the dinar depreciate against the dollars, the yen, the euros. There is also convertibility or transfer risk, which basically this idea where you have difficulties to get out the money out of the country. And lastly, there is the liquidity risk, which is basically you don't have enough liquidity of the local currency. Of course, currency risk is influenced by many factors. We can put them in two categories, the real and the perception-based. When it comes to the real-based risk, we have, for example, domestic factors. So it's influenced by the political stability of the country. It's also influenced by the macroeconomic policies, but also by the level of the local capital market. And of course, there is as well the external economic condition, and perception-based risk also is very important. But basically what you should retain here is that domestic or like real and perception-based risk influences the value of the currency, which in turn influences the stability of the currency and therefore create currency risk. This is basically the background. Now, the first question we are trying to ask is that why do we even need in the first place foreign investment to finance our climate transition? And the answer is quite straightforward. The idea is that emerging market and developing economies need every single year 2.4 trillion by 2030 to meet the climate constraint. However, this market, including Tunisia, suffer from domestic capital constraints. So, for example, they have limited maturity, there's insufficient volume of capital, and also, of course, there's a high interest rate. So, for example, we can see the cost of capital or renewable energy, let's say in Germany, versus, let's say, an African country like South Africa, is between 5 to 22%. And this is where it's really problematic. So, but however, what we're saying is that if you do the best and you strengthen the market and you strengthen the public institution, what you can really achieve is only 50% of this 2.4 trillion. And therefore, there is still around 1 trillion that needs to come from international investments. But very, very importantly, what we're trying to say here is that at the end of the day, what do we want to do is the long term is making sure that our market is strong enough to be able to finance its own climate project. This is an important long-term goal. But because of the challenges of climate and the urgency of climate, in the short term, we need international investment. So when you talk about international finance, there is a public finance and there's, of course, a private finance. And both of them transact mostly in hard currency. Most of them transact mostly, for example, specifically in dollars. So, for example, just one second. Okay. So, for example, the MDBs and the GFIs, so the multilateral development, the GFIs, they do that because they have to defend their own credit rating. Usually, they have a AAA credit rating, and they have to defend it, and therefore they cannot transact in hard currency. International private finance is exactly the same thing. They also have to defend their own financial stability, so they will transact in hard currency, and usually that hard currency is their own local currency. They transact in dollars. So now that we kind of understand why international finance is needed and why this international finance is going to be done in hard currency, let's try to understand what are really the key challenges of this type of transactions. First, there is what we call a mismatch between revenues and investments. For example, contrary to fossil fuel project in which they're able to export their revenues and able to generate hard currency, this is not at all the situation when it comes to climate project. Climate project usually generate revenue in local currency, but however, sometimes their loans or their investment are in hard currency. And it is exactly this mismatch between the loan and the investment that create this currency depreciation, which sometimes can be really detrimental because it can make the servicing of the debt much more difficult and can threaten the project viability. And of course, the long-term financing. So for example, climate projects such as renewable energy last like 25 to 30 years. And therefore, what you want to do is matching this financial term to this long lifespan. And that makes as well like the risk of currency higher and also the hedging very, very costly. Basically, currency risk affects stakeholders in different ways. But maybe what should return here is that when it comes to the borrowers, such as like local private sector or sovereign, they face the risk of default. But to the lenders, such as foreign investor or, for example, financial institution, they face the risk of credit. So now that we kind of like understand why is it problematic to have hard currency when it comes to international financing, what are first traditional ways to mitigate the currency risk? And then I'm gonna delve a bit on the innovative way. So the traditional way of doing it, so for example, commercially speaking, what we have is like a commercial bank, etc., that are usually located in offshore market. They provide what we call hedging instruments, such as forward and future and option and swap. But really what we should retain here is that these tools are costly. They add into top of the cost of the capital, and they're also not always available specifically when it comes to the long-term financial needs. When it comes to the public finance, the MDBs and the DFIs, so for example, the World Bank, etc., what do they do? What is what we call the back-to-back financing or the currency swap. A currency swap is basically the idea of I come here, I give a hard currency, I get this local currency, and that local currency, I give it back to a project lender. But the problem is that there's two main problems. First, the long-term constraint is very difficult to roll over this type of mechanism because every time you have to negotiate the interest rate, etc. And second, there is also operational complexity because you have to negotiate with the local financial bank to get this local currency and do this currency swap before giving back to someone else. So now maybe the most fun part is that how can you really think a little bit more innovatively about how to address this currency risk. First, is this idea by TCX, and if you guys not familiar with TCX, is a provider of hedging instruments, and specifically they try to operate in a frontier market where there's some liquidity issue, and basically their idea, it's not, you know, very sophisticated. It's just how can we better use the capital money of MDBs to buy down the cost of hedging. So using really subsidies to make the hedging instrument cheaper. And of course, this is, you know, it can be scaled rapidly because TCX is a very well-known provider, specifically in emerging market and developing economies. But the challenge is relying always on the capital of donors cannot be financially sustainable in the long term. Another idea, for example, is Delta. Delta initiative has been led by EBRD and AIIB, and also another institution called Frontier. And the idea is that they want to create what we call like a pool of local currency so that they are able to do this swap with like a local financial institution. But basically, they want to borrow local currency. So for example, they want to borrow dinars at the short term, and then they're able to give to the DFIs, and the DFIs give this local currency to their project borrowers, so that the borrowers do not have the risk of FX. And they use this kind of like liquidity pool risk to mitigate the mismatch between the borrowing and the lending. This is very, very cool initiative by AFZ Africa, who are like an institution that are based in Kenya. And they also got like the MDB Challenge Reward. And basically what they're saying is that why can the MDB, such as, for example, the World Bank, sell their assets, sell the loans to local institutional investors? So for example, let's say in Nigeria, where there is like the pension fund and a very developed insurance market, why they don't just sell their asset to this local institutional investor in local currency? And what you get is that the MDB have more capacity to lend, but also you support the local financial development of this country, which is again this long-term goal we want to see within these countries. Challenge, this is an untested idea, and of course changing how the MDBs work require a lot of stamina. This is an idea that has been developed by my organization, CPI, Climate Policy Initiative, and it's very also innovative, but quite simple. And the idea is that why we don't take the currency depreciation, we divide them into tranches, and every tranche can be done by different stakeholders. So for example, the local borrower would do like the first tranche, let's say between 0 to like 2% of the currency depreciation. The second tranche will be done by the insurer, and the last tranche, we do it by the donor capital when you have the tail risk, when you have like the bell curve and you have really like a sharp currency depreciation. So basically, this is like key recommendation to different stakeholders. First, for those who provide concessional capital, what are we saying is that do more so we can actually have access to the hedging instrument in a more affordable manner. For the NDBs and the DFIs is that why don't we do more to pilot this type of initiative, this innovative solutions? And for example, for our government, we need to do more when it comes to policies and to reform to really support the development of domestic financial market, because this is really our long-term goal. This is this is presentation come from a paper I wrote with some colleagues. I'm gonna share afterward the slides if you wanna delve a little bit more. Yeah, and thank you so much if you have any questions.
Thank you, Zainab.
Thank you. Oh.
We have some questions from finance people here, right?
Amazing.
Yes. You raise your hand.
Good morning. This is Salah Jafar. I'm the CEO of ESG MENA, the first and only ESG knowledge hub in the MENA region based in Dubai. And I'm the ex-correspondent many years ago of Journal La Presse of Tunisia, the international correspondent. So I know Tunisia quite well.
Amazing.
Miss it. All right. So in terms of governance, you know, with all the ongoing different basically changes ongoing in the region, especially in Tunisia, what are the governance guidelines and how are you covering that by the global institutions when it comes to lending, green lending in Tunisia?
Right. Now, this is a really great question. I would say when it comes to like governance, at least in terms of the priority, we definitely need to see more reform that can create this enabling environment to allow this international private investment to come in. And for example, I do think Tunisia are doing a lot of work to promote this enabling environment, but that cannot be done by itself. We need a better cooperation with other DFIs. For example, I believe, for example, better coordination with the IMF, who have, for example, all this technical expertise, specifically when it comes to the macroeconomic subject.
Are there any special programs that are being done, any special initiatives,
so for
guidelines
example,
set, announced?
I'm not sure specifically for Tunisia, but one of the key initiatives that can allow to do that is a new lending program that has been developed by IMF. It's called the RST, the Resilient Sustainability Trust. And it's quite a really interesting loan because it's a very, very affordable loan. And basically the reform around it is how can you make sure that the macroeconomic reform respond and adapt to the climate challenge reform.
Thank you.
Actually, it's quite technical for me in terms of finance, so I'll ask some tech questions. So when you were like telling us about the innovative solutions, like can we use new tech like blockchain technologies, like I don't know, creating our own coin for climate finance and hack the system, get out of this buying from a hard currency, and then can we do something like around that?
I'm not sure. I'm not also very knowledgeable on the Bitcoins. And I do think maybe the traditional avenues, if you actually do them well, the solution exists. Instead of like reinventing the wheel, implementing them in a sustainable manner can also be a good avenue.
No more questions? Thank you very much, Zainab.
Thank you.
Our next and last intervention is from Mr. Monam bin Allaham, who is a global expert in climate tech, ESG, and sustainable finance with over 18 years of experience. As Group CEO of Sustainable Square, he drives growth and develops innovative ESG and sustainability strategies, He specializes in impact investing, carbon management, and utilizing AI and blockchain for transparency in reporting. Monam lectures at leading institutions, including MIT and Leeds University Business School. He holds leadership roles such as Vice Chairman of FSRA Africa and board member of the Maghreb Economic Forum, based in Dubai. He influences sustainability efforts across the Middle East, Asia, and Africa. This session will explore the increasing importance of ESG for investors and how companies can leverage ESG ratings to enhance sustainability credibility. It will cover the regulatory pressure driving improved risk management and sustainability practices. The session will connect sustainability initiatives to financial performance, offering strategies for long-term value creation. Participants will learn how ESG can attract investment, boost reputation, and unlock market opportunities. Simona.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Let me just start by the last question. When it comes to lowering the capital costs, definitely blockchain is the best solution for that. But the issue is like whether our jurisdictions, are up to the point, to start embracing that challenge and including blockchain technology into lowering the cost of capital or no. That's a different story. But then yes, it definitely can slash the cost, or even like 80% of the cost could be dropped by the blockchain technology. My name is Monam Abdel. I'm a group CEO of Sustainable Square. I'm Tunisian. I've been in the industry of ESG, sustainability, and climate change for about 18 years. I think I was one of the 5 or 6 people that have started in the region, talking about ESG sustainability. I was speaking Chinese to people. Nobody could understand what I'm talking about when it comes to the address of the topic to the private sector. We all remember that 20 years ago, everything started with CSR, philanthropy, and we were like navigating the point of trying to embrace the challenge of explaining why it's important for the private sector to embrace this agenda. And everything started with us telling them that it's good for society. Let's try to impact the planet. It's good for our reputation. It didn't make a difference. I failed miserably with that. And that's why 5 years, 6 years ago, I was like, the only way you can push the private sector to understand it, to buy in this agenda, is to speak the dollar sign and to try to explain to them what's the business case behind this, what's the economic impact, and how it can impact their balance sheet at the end of the day. So they can invest in it and they don't see it as a charitable agenda or a thing to do or a good thing to do when it comes to this. So Sustainable Square has been in the market for about 12 years. We started in Dubai as a boutique firm that does consultancy in ESG, sustainability, and climate change for the private sector. We only focus on the large enterprises. We don't work with the SMEs. We don't work with the NGOs. We just focus on the private sector. And long story short, since 12 years, we've managed to deliver 450 projects, 180 clients. These are most of the clients we work with. As you can see, the leading companies in the Middle East, 40% of them are the banking sector. I have the energy sector, the insurance, telecommunication, the investment, and so on as food and beverage across. We really work across all industries, all sectors, providing them with very advanced solutions when it comes to climate change, ESG, and sustainability, helping them to embrace that topic and then try to define the business case behind it. 3 years ago, we started embracing technology, and we developed the first ESG software in the world that does an auto-drafting of sustainability reports. I have a global vision, which is to disrupt the production of sustainability reports. Consultants are making billions of dollars out of production of sustainability reports. It takes companies at least 5 months to do that. And I created a software that was the first in the world using artificial intelligence to really embrace that and to auto-draft an entire sustainability report on a click of a button. So if a company manages to aggregate the data on 31st of December, I want them on 1st of January to come to click to get their report drafted and ready to produce. I know consultants are hating me for this, and Salah knows this. They're hating me for kind of disrupting a product that they are considering a co-milking product, but then that's the future. You only rely on technology to really embrace these challenges. So just to focus on the agenda today, I will try to, as much as possible, define the business case. There are so many things that that were mentioned during the event here. I'm not going to go through them, but let me try to define the definition and the fundamentals for the private sector and what's the best way to define ESG and sustainability, and then try to take it from there. What we've noticed recently that the call for ESG in investment relations, the call for ESG in general assemblies for companies, in earning calls for companies has exponentially grown. Investors today are saying if a company is making money, it doesn't mean the company is healthy. So I have to look at the financial performance and the non-financial performance. Because historically, we've failed miserably as private sector and humanity when we only focus on the financial performance and we kind of disregarded the non-financial performance or the non-financial metrics or the non-financial indicators, which are eventually ESG metrics or sustainability metrics. And when investors wake up after the global economic crisis, they said, we have to look at financials and non-financials at the same time. And that's why you can see the demand has been growing, fundamentally when it comes to this. But there is a big misconception within the private sector. They don't understand that globally we've created the practice and we created the tool to measure the practice. So for example, philanthropy CSR is a practice by which the organization tried to drive an impact on the community. But we created a tool for that to measure our performance when it comes to that, which is the SROI tool, for example. But sustainability is the long-term agenda, is the big picture, is the software, but ESG are not more than ESG metrics and indicators. And that's the misconception. People in the private sector, they think that ESG is the big umbrella, but sustainability is the big umbrella. ESG are not more than indicators, not more than metrics. And that's the misconception. People, they glorify. I believe after 20 years of experience in this field, there is nothing called ESG strategy. There is nothing called ESG strategy. There is a sustainability strategy that I can achieve through ESG metrics. So let's do not make a big deal out of ESG because it's not more than indicators, as simple as that. So think about sustainability as the software. ESG are the plugins inside that software or the features inside that software. So I take a set of ESG metrics and I make sure to implement them as part of the agenda of every organization within units in order to achieve the long-term sustainability and thrivability of that business. As simple as that. Sustainability, ESG are just metrics. So let's do not glorify the word ESG because I know people have been obsessed about the word ESG, but it doesn't exist. There is nothing called ESG strategy. There is sustainability strategy. And I will explain this more throughout this. So ESG, not more than metrics. Under E, everything related to the environment. Under the S, everything related to the society, the way I treat my employees, the well-being, the human rights, the labor rights, and so on and so on. And under governance, everything related to ethical practices, the way I vote, bribery and corruption, shareholder rights, and so on and so on. As simple as that. So it's not very complicated. We've been doing it for a long time, and that's why it's straightforward. The global regional emergencies, I'm not going to go through this because everybody has been talking about this and everybody has been circulating all these incidents that are happening and events that are happening around the world. But let's focus on the business case. Why are we doing it? What's in it for us? And what's the economic impact of ESG and sustainability and climate change to the private sector today? There was a very nice study by MSCI. It was launched last month. It has identified that the lowest rated companies and their ESG metrics, they access to the lowest rate, to the highest rate of capital. So basically, when you perform really well, you get a nice rating or a very advanced rating by MSCI, by Sustainalytics, by Moody's, by Fitch, you can access the lower rates of capital. And that's provided by the banking sector. So you can see easily that the lowest the rate, the highest the capital, the highest the rate, the lowest the capital, as simple as that. There was a very nice study published by the Capital Market Authority in Saudi Arabia in partnership with the King Faisal University. And they took all the trading data for all the listed companies in Saudi Arabia since 2013. They demonstrated that there is a positive correlation between ESG performance and financial sustainability. So the more you perform nicely in ESG and sustainability, the better your stability as an organization. Saudi Arabia has done a corporate governance reform in 2017. The impact of the corporate governance reform on companies' performance and stability of their financials was very positive. Yet, COVID, when it hit everyone. So these are the three main outcomes of the study. We all remember these two scandals around the world. When Volkswagen, they faked the carbon emission in the US. We all remember this. You can see easily that their trading has slashed by almost 25% on that day. You all remember what happened with BP in the Gulf of Mexico when they had the oil spill. Their trading slashed on June 2010. So just to demonstrate to you that non-financial metrics and non-financial indicators can heavily impact the trading of organizations. We remember when the media, they picked up on the on Apple, on their supply chain when they were employing kids under 16. The trading on that day slashed by 13%. So non-financial metrics, they can destroy global brands today. And it has been clearly demonstrated in so many cases, but I just picked up 2, Volkswagen and BP, because we all remember these, and Apple, and there's so many as well. Larry Fink is the chairman of BlackRock. BlackRock is the largest asset management company in the world. Basically, when this guy speaks, the whole world listens. The whole market listens. They have $16 trillion asset under management. Every year, Larry Fink produce a letter to the public sector and to the market, explaining to them what are the priorities for the public sector when it comes to trading and investment. In his last letter, he identified 7 points. I'm going to go through them quickly. Number 1, race to net zero. He is demonstrating to the public world and to the market that every single company should have a net zero agenda in order to really trigger investment and then attract capital and liquidity. Setting targets will be profitable for all stakeholders. He didn't say for all shareholders. Historically, we've failed miserably as humanity because we only focused on shareholders. But he's just trying to open up the boundaries for all stakeholders because we are yet to create very shared value targets between us as an organization and all shareholders as we speak. Then he said companies must provide purpose-driven value. When we are defining our purpose and mission and vision, if we don't really embed the impact value and the value creation and the shared value creation, then we are failing as an organization. Number 4 is a very bold statement by Larry Fink. He's saying sustainability-focused companies, only sustainability-focused companies will thrive. It's a very positive signal for the market when Larry Fink is putting this. Then he speaks about different methodologies and different standards that are very important for the private sector. Today, more than 46 countries around the world, they have carbon taxation in their jurisdictions. 46 countries, and the number is growing. And let me just try to explain to you what is happening around the world. So this is the price of a 1 metric ton of carbon around the world. In Norway, $137. In Switzerland, 101. In France, 52. 69 in Norway. Indonesia, 18. 37 in Canada. Let me drive you through a scenario. And this is a very real scenario, by the way. I work with a company in Abu Dhabi. Their carbon emission last year is 74,111 metric ton of CO2, scope 1 and scope 2. The rumors in the Middle East that the scenario rumors in the Middle East that the price of 1 metric ton of carbon would be between 80 to 100. A simple calculation. The CFO of this company would have to pay or a taxable amount of 6 million to 7.5 million on an annual basis. If they don't really embed offsetting or they don't start optimizing their operation in order to reduce their carbon emission or slash it or so on. So this is the threat that every CFO is facing when it comes to carbon taxation. But what I feel right now in the market that carbon taxation in the Middle East, it is coming very soon because of this. CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. We all know about this. Europe is saying, enough, you were dumping your trash or dumping your emission inside my territory. So any company or any country that is exporting fertilizers, aluminum, steel, and so on, grid, electricity, they have to pay taxation at the border of Europe. Eventually, most of the countries will say, why would I pay it at the border of Europe? Why I don't pay it at my jurisdictions here? Eventually, let me just put a carbon taxation inside my territory in order to paying it to Europe. So I benefit from it. And this is what will accelerate countries in the GCC to really initiate carbon taxation. And I know for a fact that many Ministry of Environment in the GCC, they already started putting a plan for carbon taxation inside the GCC, and it's coming very soon because of this. So what are the key drivers that are pushing companies today to embed ESG and sustainability? Obviously, investors. Last year, HSBC, they took all the IR managers. IR are investor relations. They took them to London to meet with the investors. when an IR manager, if you know IR managers, when they go for a roadshow or to meet investors, they memorize their financials inside out. They create a PPT for all their financial performance and they memorize it inside out. And they get super excited to present it to the investors. They went to London, investors told them, show me your ESG data, then I will speak financials with you. That was a big disappointment. They رجعوا بخفاي حنين, as we say بالعربية, right? They came back and they're very disappointed because they couldn't show their financials. Investors, they told them, show me your ESG data, then I will speak financials with you. I have a very good friend, he's Tunisian. He used to be, he's still part of a big bank in Abu Dhabi. He tells me that 70% of the questions I receive during the investors meetings are about ESG. So investors today are waking up and they're scrutinized and grilling companies when it comes to ESG performance and sustainability performance. Rating agencies, they started covering the Middle East and putting pressure on every single listed company in order to demonstrate performance and leadership when it comes to ESG and sustainability. And these rating agencies, we all know them, MSCI, FTSE, S&P, Sustainalytics, Moody's, Bloomberg, and all of that. They all started to cover securities in the Middle East. Regulators, every single regulator in the Arab world, they have put a guideline for ESG performance and an ESG metric for all the listed companies inside that jurisdictions. And many of them, they mandated ESG disclosure and reporting for all the listed companies inside them. So UAE has mandated it, Oman, Kuwait, Bahrain, Egypt, Morocco, and we are still waiting for the other jurisdictions to really mandate ESG disclosure and reporting for all the listed companies. The first year when the UAE mandated ESG disclosure, 99% compliance rate. In both stock markets, Dubai and Abu Dhabi, 99% of listed companies, they produce an annual sustainability report. Eventually, they're part of a global pool for investment automatically when they disclose. And these are like a simple example of ESG metrics that is requested by different jurisdictions. And there is another trend that we have noticed globally, which is the evolution of the fixed income market. The fixed income market is picking up when it comes to ESG and sustainability. And we are seeing a lot of organizations that are driving leadership when it comes to ESG performance being represented in global funds, ETFs, and different financial products. And let me share with you some examples. We all ask our questions. If I do CSR, will I be investable? Will I get some attraction from investors? These are examples of funds that are capturing organizations that are leading when it comes to different S topics. Social Responsibility Fund. It was constructed. Cumulative growth, 83% cumulative growth since the inception of that fund. You can see the trajectory upward. A second fund, which is constructed globally by, I think by Invesco, 70% cumulative growth easily. You can easily see that it outperformed the market when it comes to gender equality. So gender equality, these are companies that have really performed and pushed their practices when it comes to gender equality. We all want gender equality at our workplace, but we don't know how to demonstrate the business case behind it. Look at these companies. They invested in gender equality. They made it through to these funds. Eventually, they're getting investment for free. Climate funds. This is a climate fund constructed by Schroeder. Easily, you can see that it outperforms the markets. 114% cumulative growth since the inception. Easy money going to you because you performed really well or you advanced your climate practices. This is a climate bond by Invesco. Easily, you can see that it outperforms the market, 35% cumulative growth since the inception. Another case, which is when you invest in governance. Easily, you can see that this index, which is constructed by MSCI, easily you can see that it outperforms the market, and it's 13.5% in 2 years cumulative growth. So basically, if you put your money in a bank, you won't get 30% in 2 years. As simple as that. ETFs. I've picked 4 ETFs constructed by global asset managers. You can easily see that the trajectory upwards, and these are all climate ETFs and ESG ETFs. The global ESG asset market could hit $40 trillion by 2030. It might be very disappointing when it comes to climate financing somewhere else, but when it comes to the evolution in the private sector, it's picking up big time, and it could hit 40 trillion by 2030. And these are all investment going to the private sector when they perform really well when it comes to ESG and sustainability, and so on and so on. The last part, doing ESG and sustainability is the best way to access to free capital and the lower rates of capital. I'm going to drive you through 3 case studies quickly just to see real case studies from the region. Number 1, Majid Al-Futtaim. They raised $1.2 billion from a bank, Standard Chartered Bank. What's the rate? 0. 0 interest rate, $1.2 billion. They just need to commit to 2 indicators. First indicator, they reach 30% at the top management and board gender equality, and retrofitting all their malls, because they have malls, into LEED or above certification. 0 interest, free capital from the banks. Sustainability account proposition. Standard Chartered Bank, they take your treasury, your bank account with all the liquidity in it, and they invest it into proceeds for environmental and social, and you generate profit from that. So instead, it's a static bank account with liquidity. They just invest it into social environmental proceeds, and you make money out of it. The green and sustainable bonds. First Abu Dhabi Bank, when they first raised or launched a bond or issued a bond for 600 million, they issued the bond for $500 million. They attracted 600 million, 2.8% oversubscribed by investors. 2.8% oversubscribed. The Sukuk, which is the Sharia compliant version of bonds. Dubai Islamic Bank successfully priced 1 billion sustainable Sukuk, 3 times oversubscribed by investors. 3 times. You can see the appetite from the investors when it comes to these financial products. Just to capitalize on this, the business case of ESG and sustainability is growing. It is very apparent, and companies today, they have no choice whether to capitalize on these growth opportunities through their sustainability and ESG performance. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Timon. Question.
Thank you, Mona. We can discuss a lot about, the idea of ESG and how actually it might affect, the behavior of the corporate world actually, and taking the direction of sustainability. Actually, I want to, just because you mentioned the carbon tax, and actually, I want to ask you about Tunisia's position, because until now, and I've been working actually, one of my research papers is back to 2016, actually, when we started really talking about, these kind of instruments, and mainly after actually COP in 2015, like 21 in Paris. So for me, actually, when you have a carbon tax, and it's really important, it's like a kind of message or setting the tone for even the voluntary carbon market, etc., about the way how you perceive the value or the price of carbon, even though we might be away from the social value of carbon. But actually, what is your position? Why actually, for example, Tunisia is not moving until now, even though I heard that there is a project on carbon tax, on supporting actually carbon markets, whether actually a compliance, or even if it's not like a national voluntary carbon market, but engaging in a regional voluntary carbon market, putting incentives for developing carbon projects. So what is your intake? Why do you think we are not moving into this direction?
Bluntly speaking, I have no idea. Let me just try to, I'm not really aware of what's going on in Tunisia, to be honest, but then a small conversation with the ex-minister last year at COP28, she said that she confirmed that they already started putting the platform for a carbon taxation in Tunisia and exploring carbon market. That's what she mentioned to me. Too brief. I've got no more details when it comes to this. Probably you should address this question to the representative from the delegation here, but unfortunately, I'm not aware of what's going on, to be honest.
Do you think there is opportunity, we should do it, and in which way?
If we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it with the Bourse of Tunis, right? The Bourse of Tunis cannot take any decision right now because the CMA in Tunisia does not want to take any decision when it comes to this. That's what I've learned from the police, which means there is a willingness from the Bourse of Tunis to do it, but there is no willingness from the CMA to do it. So we're stuck. If we don't push the step from the CMA and the central bank, to really create a legislation for this that could be activated by the Bourse of Tunis, then we're stuck. We can't do anything. The Ministry of Environment can advocate for this, but there is no willingness from these jurisdictions to push the needle, then we can't do anything. And I would stop here because they don't have more insights about this.
Thank you, Simonam.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are pretty close to the end of our side event. And I can tell you, I can feel how proud we are of our talents and how proud we feel you are loving Tunisia. So thank you very much for your attachment to Tunisia and for your dedication and for your time and for your sharing. If this event happened, it is an initiative of Tunisian Talents United. It has been supported from the beginning by the Ministry of Environment, and it has also been supported by some sponsors. And I would say in alphabetic order, Attijari Bank, the Baker Hughes, and Caisse de dépôt et consignation. So thank you for the three of them. And it happens that we have the chance to have Caisse de dépôt et consignation represented here by Madame Negotiators.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure for me to participate to official delegation, Tunisian official delegation, and to contribute with the TTU to support startups to be there and to pitch. I'm proud of you, and I think our startups and competence Tunisian talents can be of high value. Yes, yes. And thank you for your participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madame Negia. Thank you, all of you. And thank you to TTU executive team and the technology supporters and the startups for supporting this. Thank you for those who have been following this online, and probably see you next year.
No,